90 F-35 stealth fighters. That's what 18 billion euros buys you. 90 of the most advanced combat aircraft on the planet. Flying, operational, real. Italy just spent more than that. On a jet that doesn't exist. $21 billion. 18.6 billion euros. Committed to a fighter nobody has flown, nobody has tested, and nobody has even seen in its final form. The cost tripled in 4 years. Parliament is in open revolt. And the country writing the check? The one the internet says can't fight. They spent 80 years as the world's military joke. But what Italy is really buying with $21 billion isn't just a fighter jet. It's something far more dangerous. Italy surrendered in World War II, switched sides, became a meme. 80 years later, that's still the whole story most people know. So nobody bothered checked what Italy was actually doing. 20 billion euros a year in military revenue, 68% sold to foreign governments. Italy became everyone's arms dealer, and nobody called it that because nobody was paying attention. While the world was recycling WW2 jokes, Italy built a defense industry that operates in 150 countries. Leonardo, a company most people have never heard of, generates 17.8 billion euros a year, 80% from exports, with 8,000 employees in the United States building components for the F-35. Fincantieri designed warships for the US Navy. Beretta made NATO's standard pistol for 3 decades. Think about how brilliant that is. Nobody sanctions a country they don't take seriously. Nobody monitors your military exports when you're famous for pasta. Nobody calls it an arms race when the country building the weapons is a punchline. For 80 years, Italy operated in the blind spot of global defense, building, selling, profiting, all behind the world's most effective cover story, a reputation for losing. But now Europe has a problem Italy can't solve from the shadows. The Eurofighter Typhoon entered service in 2003. The F-35 was designed in the 1990s. China is building a 6th-generation fighter. The US just gave Boeing the F-47 contract. Europe's frontline jets are aging out, and by the 2040s, they'll face threats that didn't exist when these planes were drawn on paper. Italy, Britain, and Japan had 2 choices: upgrade old jets and fall behind, or build something new. They chose to build. And for the country that spent 80 years hiding, that choice changes everything. In this kind of analysis, the money and the strategy behind the weapons is what this channel does. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. In December 2022, 3 countries merged 2 fighter programs into one. Britain and Italy's Tempest joined Japan's FX. They called it GCAP, the Global Combat Air Program. But this partnership didn't come without friction. What they're designing would have been laughable coming from Italy 20 years ago. A twin-engine stealth fighter that commands swarms of autonomous drones deep inside hostile airspace. Weapons bay carrying double the payload of an F-35 without breaking stealth. Range to cross the Atlantic on internal fuel. The Eurofighter needs 3 or 4 tanker stops for the same trip, and a service life beyond 2070. The engineers being hired today will retire before this jet does. From the country, the internet says, can't build a tank that drives forward. When GCAP was proposed, Italy's share was 6 billion euros. Manageable. 4 years later, 18.6 billion. 3 times the original estimate. Not a single prototype built. Parliament approved 8.8 billion in February 2026, spread through 2037. The remaining 7.8 billion to be arranged at a future date. Italy committed to a program it hasn't fully figured out how to pay for. The opposition was brutal. The Five-Star Party called Parliament a cash dispenser issuing billions like peanuts, and the comparison they made was devastating. 18 billion bought 90 operational F-35s. Planes in the air right now. GCAP has cost 18.6 billion and delivered concept designs, simulator testing, and a joint venture agreement. 90 jets versus 0 jets. for more money. If this were any other country, you'd call it a scandal or corruption. But Italy has a different word for it: strategy. Where those billions actually end up is the smartest trick Italy has pulled in 80 years. Stay with us. Every euro Italy spends on GCAP goes to an Italian company. Every single one. That's not a side effect. That's the entire point. And it's what Italy has been doing for 80 years, using defense contracts to pump money into Italian industry while the world looked the other way. GCAP is just the biggest version yet. The joint venture building the jet is called Edgewing. BAE Systems from Britain, Leonardo from Italy, Japan Aircraft Industrial Enhancement Company. Equal partners on paper. But Leonardo leads 4 of the most critical development domains: flight systems, weapons, training, and core mission software. Of 9,000 people working on GCAP worldwide, 3,000 are Italian. Based in Turin, Rome, Florence, Nerviano, Leonardo has already signed GCAP contracts worth 100 million euros with Italian subcontractors. And that's the tip. The money flows through Leonardo into Italian subcontractors, into Italian workers in industrial regions where factories have been closing for decades. Genoa, Turin, Naples, La Spezia, places that needed an economic lifeline. Defense became that lifeline. GCAP isn't a fighter jet. It's a 30-year industrial policy wearing a stealth coating. The plane is almost beside the point. What Italy is really buying is an aerospace economy that generates revenue until 2070. And nobody questioned it, because who investigates the military budget of a country that can't fight? For 80 years, being underestimated was Italy's greatest weapon. But 18.6 billion euros is a very loud secret. The parliamentary debates are public. The cost overruns are making international headlines. Opposition parties are demanding answers. For the first time in 80 years, the world is looking at Italy's defense spending and asking, what exactly is going on here? The answers aren't comfortable. Italy's defense minister has publicly accused Britain of withholding technology and specifically controlling the most valuable secrets. The alliance built to save money is fighting over who gets to keep the knowledge, and the cost hasn't stopped climbing. 6 billion became 18.6 billion before a prototype existed. Production, flight testing, weapons integration, and 50 years of life cycle support are all still ahead. For a country carrying 137% debt to GDP, second highest in the EU, every billion is borrowed time. If GCAP succeeds, Italy becomes one of 3 countries on Earth capable of building a 6th-generation fighter. Leonardo's future is locked in for decades. 3,000 jobs become 10,000. Italian engineers master the technologies that will define aerospace for 50 years. If it fails, 18.6 billion euros disappears. And Italy loses something more valuable than the money. It loses the invisibility. Because you can't go back to being the country nobody takes seriously after you've written a check that big. GCAP is the moment that strategy gets tested. Either the invisible empire stays invisible and keeps getting richer, or the check is too big, the jet never flies, and the whole world keeps making jokes. But so far, you've seen one piece of Italy's power. This fighter is only the beginning. Italy's real strength shows up when you look at the whole military machine. In our next video, we go deeper into Italy's silent forge. Subscribe and don't miss it. What do you think? Is the 18.6 billion euros gamble worth it? Tell me in the comments.